Well, welcome. So today, here we are in the Mery Miguez in Conversation show, presenting Holy Stoppit. So, so Holly, um, this is like a reunion with guest Shannon because Holly and Penny and we got together. We met in Sussex, in England, I think 2 years ago at least, if not three. And we were doing a workshop with Vivian Gladwell and Penny. Penny was also teaching in that workshop. And we did an amazing work, and I really like that the two of you are here because I think the conversation
Me
can
too.
even farther now. One of the things that I really liked about that workshop was that we did clowning, and also we took that work and worked, with ourselves, in ourselves, on ourselves, and with each other, with like questions and things that what was coming up for us in clowning. And that has a lot to do with this conversation. I invited Holly because Holly is an artist and a clown. She tells herself she's been a clown for her whole entire life, and clowning is the way she actually finds where she can be the most herself, and she can actually be her most amazing, like exuberant self, and then it's okay to do that. And she's done lots of like circus work with her family, and she's a director, she's a performer, she's a teacher, she's a drama therapist. I mean, wow. So it's impossible I could talk the entire day about who she is and what she's done. That's why I put the TED talk she gave in Bristol last year, which you can know a lot about herself with that. So let's go ahead and start with this conversation. And the idea of the conversation is, again, it's not that Hollywood gave us a presentation, but just that she will start us off in some kind of conversation. We can ask questions, we can talk about, our own experience. And right now, the idea is clowning somewhat in everyday life. Like what clown has to give us, and what can we learn from, not so much on stage, but like in everyday life. Like how is the how I mean, how do you use it, Holly? How do you find clowning in everyday life, or what does it give you, or like whatever you want to start with that.
Right. Well, I'll start us off with a little ramble on clowning. So I teach workshops. I teach people, adults, from all walks of life. So I have a mixture of performers and non-performers. I have people come to me from all kind of different backgrounds to my workshops to learn clown skills, but not particularly for performance. They're using the skills in real life. So I guess clowning for me, there's two main components of clowning, which is curiosity and compassion. So to be in the state of clown is to drop back into a wider perspective by switching on curiosity, becoming more curious about yourself, your experience, your feelings, and everything that's around you. And it's that curiosity that makes everything a game. There's a potential game in everything. We can turn our curiosity up. We can find a different way of relating to things. So yeah, curiosity. And then the other one is compassion, and that's really central to my practice. Is that clowns are compassionate beings. They're able to empathize and to resonate, and again, it's that curiosity. I think curiosity is the key to that, is being able to just wonder a little about how it is for other people, and approaching the world with curiosity and compassion as the two guiding forces opens up a playground, turns the world into a playground when you approach with curiosity and compassion. When I approach the world with curiosity and compassion, suddenly there's lots to play with. There's lots to experience, and there's magic, and there's lightness, and there's beauty, and there's wonder. And so the skills that we cultivate in the workshops, people are applying in all different regions of their lives, but especially in relating. So there's a few key skills that I teach that are about starting again, really. They're about being prepared to drop the storyline, whatever you're building up, being prepared to drop it, take a pause, have a breathe, start again, find another way of connecting. How's that for a ramble?
Yeah. And as you were talking about compassion, I was feeling like that compassion that sometimes when I hear compassion, I imagine people, being compassionate with people. But like, as you were talking, I could see that quality of compassion with the entire world, like with objects, with a wall, with the way you actually see everything, not just the people. It's almost a stance to life.
Yeah, I would say so. And it's quite radical as well. It's quite a radical position. I mean, you could think of it as naive. You could think of it as a naive way to approach the world, but actually, I experience it as quite radical to approach the world with an open heart. What's going to happen? Makes things happen. Just in opening in that way, things happen. Like I'm sitting here at my desk and it overlooks a street, and the street performs a little show for me every day. There's a little show that happens outside my window, and and it's there because I look for it. It's there because I'm open to it. I'm like, what's happening out there today?
That's a good point. It's there because I look for it.
Yeah.
How is it for you, ladies? Like, what is this resonating? Well, I know, Penny, you've done some clown work. Like, and how's this idea resonating with you?
You know what I love about you, Holly, among the many things I love about you is that you have this capacity, even at a time like this, when the whole world is kind of stopped, to turn not only to compassion, but to wonder and the possibility of joy. And for me, I'm feeling this paradoxical mix of compassion for the world and how beautiful and healed it is becoming, at the same time as the compassionate grief for the stories that aren't as easy to feel joyful about. And for me, it feels like it's only then, when I let it all in, that the playful part can come up. Otherwise, I find that I'm trying to jerk myself into optimism without the poignant reality and beauty of this really hard time. So.
I think I agree with you. There's one of my friends wrote an article this week about the Pollyanna position, taking that Pollyanna position of that, that character in the story that wants to put rainbows everywhere, make the world beautiful. And she called it Pollyannaing, when you find yourself kind of jumping to the kind of optimistic position, like it must all be beautiful, it must all be joyful. And I think I agree with you. I think actually being able to open to all of the different feelings and all the different realms of feelings gives permission to feel all the feelings. And for me, clowning is a great way of exploring the feelings, because it automatically creates a little bit of distance and space. Play creates distance and space, which allows you to see all the way around anything, objects, feelings, states of mind. And I think, I've used clowning to explore the really dark realms of the human condition, and there's space. There becomes space when we can play with these things.
I don't know you, Shannon, but I would also love to hear your words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
How is it? Shannon haven't done any clown much, but hasn't. But I'm curious also how it's resonating, seeing compassion from this other point of view.
Yeah, one thing that's striking me, and it's interesting because it came up yesterday in a group that I was co-facilitating. This, Holly, you said something about compassion and curiosity for yourself too, and the wider.
Mhm.
And I think that's so key that we can forget when we're in a position of leading, that we're doing it for everybody else. But if we're missing having compassion and having curiosity for ourselves, we're missing a whole realm. It's kind of like what Penny was talking about when you don't include the darker, more negative. So that really struck me when you said that with my experience last night, that's really important.
Yeah.
And when we were sitting now, like before starting, this time I decided not to give any instruction of just sitting. It was really interesting, and I would like to tap into like using, like this combination of clowning and mindfulness as well. Like if you want to say something, Holly. But there was this moment almost that I noticed it happens, or it has the possibility of actually happening when I do clowning, of actually noticing what's happening with me. Like noticing that state of like this not knowing what's gonna happen, not knowing, like even also, but in the moment, this feeling, I don't know, like I don't want to call it anxiety, but this sense of like in my belly, something, I don't know, and then like goes up in here, and all these feelings in the body that usually, yes, I feel them in the meditation, but I also feel them when I'm on stage, in the moment of relating with others. How's that for you? What's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I use mindfulness as a training tool. So, I mean, both for myself and also in my workshops, that we start every session with a little guided meditation to guide people into their bodies, to feel the breath, to feel the sensations, to notice emotions. And every session starts with this before we move into the play. And this is a kind of a base note, I guess, for my training. So then as we're clowning, we're learning the games, we become more and more able to dip into what's true, what's authentic, what's real, what's actually going on. And then the second part is giving permission for participants to then take on, to give themselves permission to show the taboo feelings, to show the feelings that might not always be appropriate, or might not always have been appropriate. Because I guess we want to be perceived in our strength. We want to be perceived by others as being, strong and capable and wonderful and special. And so actually what clowning does, because you're kind of in a safe persona, you've got the nose, you're in this kind of persona of clown, although it's you, it's not a persona, it's you. But through that you have permission to work with the other parts of the self that you might not ordinarily get to share or show. And yes, and so I drill people to pause and to pause and feel during performance, to take it in again, to go in again. What's going on now? Let's work with that. And what's going on now? Let's work with that. Because it's quite often, as you were talking about in the last show, that as soon as you put yourself in the gaze of the audience, it's suddenly about, whatever you've got set up with the audience. So maybe you want to please the audience, or you want them to like you, or you want to and so then we start vetoing all the other parts of the self that don't ordinarily get seen. And so my job, I guess, as coach or facilitator is is to slow things down and go, okay, and let's have a little pause, let's have a little breathe, let's have a little feel what's happening, and let's work from this place. Let's continue from this place wherever you are. Yeah. So yeah, I know mindfulness has been a really important part of my journey, and I've been learning for the last 15 years. I'm still not any good at it. But I show up, you know, I show up, and it's really given me some stability, both in life and in performance, that I didn't have before. Yeah. How's that land for you?
You who?
All of us.
I love this. I don't know that I have the words, but this, what clowning is so magical about is that double or even triple sense of you're aware of different things at different times, and that chance to think, oh God, I feel horrible, and then to realize, oh, but I'm a clown feeling horrible, you know, but it's really me. And somehow that space that you were talking about, that space is the magical part for me, that allows play in a time when you wouldn't think you could play. I mean, I still remember, and I haven't done that much clowning, but I still remember these feelings just whipping from, oh my God, I'm horrible, I'm a miserable failure, to, oh God, this is funny because I'm a clown being a miserable failure, and everyone can relate. And it's this then there's the chance to say, why am I feeling like a miserable failure? I mean, and it's all of that that I find so compelling, because otherwise it just works by, and later you feel awful, or you feel like, oh, well, it was okay, but there's no chance to pause and play with it.
Exactly. I think that's the moment when the clown actually finally can come out, I feel, because when we think we are, I mean, at least for myself, when I was thinking that I was on stage trying to do something, even though I knew that wasn't the thing, but in any case, I will go in and just try to do something. But when it was like, hey, this is what is happening right now, that's it. And that, just play that, just keep going with that, see where that takes you. That's when actually something happens. And you know, like you said, Penny, like, I'm a clown feeling all this. It's almost as if I'm a clown. I'm a clown. It's almost like, instead of saying I'm a person, because when we say I'm a person, that's when things just go really flat. Even in life, you know, when I'm trying to be a person, but when I'm actually a clown, not only it's funny, but it's actually there's meat in this bone all of a sudden.
There's something about conditions for me. There's something about, or conditional states of mind. I think when I really drop deeply into the clown state, I don't have conditions on myself. There aren't any conditions about how I should be, or how I should be relating, or what I should show, or I don't have any of that, because I'm in a really pure state of play and connection. That's all I'm interested in when I'm in the state of clown. Just interested in, how can I connect with this person right now. And then, you know, all other times in my life, there's conditions about what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do, what I'm allowed to show and what I'm not allowed to show. And that's interesting, that what you just said there, that, you know, when I say I'm a person, that's a problem. That's where the problems, because to be a person, there's a whole load of conditions around that. Like, not only am I a person, I need to be a good person. I need to be seen to be a good person. I need to be wholesome. I need to be healthy. I need to be clever. I need to be sexy. I need to be cool. I need to be, oh God. And those things are crippling. They're really crippling to flow. I heard you talk about flow a lot last week, and I talk a lot about flow in my training as well. Because that's what we need to tap into with clown. When you're in pure clown state, that's where you are. You're just in flow. And I think there's something around that lack of self-consciousness, or lack of conditions, that you put upon yourself.
Yes. Oh, that's beautifully said. It for me, it's like what you said, Shannon. It makes you self-compassionate, because no matter what feeling you have in show, it's fine. It's part of being a clown person, right?
It's just information. It's just information. It's, oh, I have a feeling. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I have another feeling. That's interesting. There's an object. That's interesting. So it's like approaching everything with a turns it all into a game and takes the weight off, particular things, particular emotions being. So like that, I've made quite a lot of shows about grief. My last 4 shows that I've directed have been about grief. Autobiographical shows. So these are performers who are living with grief and are wanting to express what that's like, that experience, through the medium of clown. And clowns are great at playing with grief, because they don't
tell about it. Tell what you do.
They just don't. They don't care. They don't have any kind of reverence about what you should be feeling and what you should be doing in this terrible time of loss. And they don't have those kind of social constructs. So we'll play with the theme of grief. Okay, so let's play with the theme of death, and they'll go, oh yeah, brilliant, but I know all about death. Put a red nose on. Dead. And there's something about the energy of clown that lifts the lid and makes space for play, a really irreverent play, which is, it's naughty. A lot of what they do in the early stages of rehearsal is very, very naughty and inappropriate, but they have to do that. They have to be allowed to be incredibly naughty and irreverent, because if they're too tightly bound to their subject matter, there's no room for play. You can't play with that. When it's really important and heavy and reverent, you can't play with that. So first thing I do is get them in the clown state, put red noses on them, get them really open and curious and playful, and go, let's do it. Let's do a funeral. Go. let's do ghosts. Go. All of these things, and then after, then we can start to work into the material and finesse it and shape it and actually find a little bit more subtlety to the material. But in the beginning stages, the clown is a great lifter of lids. They just lift all the lids off all the boxes. They go, oh, what's in here? Oh. And there's a real edit.
Can I ask you what you've learned about yourself playing with grief?
I've learned. I've learned that it's grief is a human. It's part of the human condition, and it's as important as all the other states, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful and opening and spacious, actually, because I feel very honoured, because I get to get inside people's grief with them. I get to kind of get right up close to them and sit with them inside grief and feel what that's like with them. And it's a really it's a really honest time, and it's a really honest state, and it's really pure, and it's really it's really connecting, actually. So it's been a really massive privilege to be allowed to connect with people in that really open state.
I feel there's something, because the clown kind of he always will gravitate towards what feels good about whatever, like whatever situation. There's a movement they find that actually feels good, and then they will try to repeat that. So I wonder, in terms of grief, like what could be like in the going in, just to find in the body that feeling good, because it's very interesting, because about when you think about grief, you don't think about feeling good. The opposite. When it's really something that you know that you're working with at the moment doesn't feel good, but like it's interesting to think about it. Where's
Yeah.
that place where it actually feels good?
Yeah. Yeah, and just like as a little note, I don't work with people in the first year of grief, because I think that first year is a really precious time, and in that first year, it's unlikely that people will be able to get enough of a distance away from it to be able to play with it. So I think that first year is a very precious year, but after that first year, when people feel ready, they come to me, and there is pleasure in expressing all emotions, I think, and being able to really tap into the roots of grief and to be able to find the right form for it. So my shows start off with red nose clowning. Often in the process, it starts off with red nose clowning, and then we lose the red noses after the first week. So the red noses are really good for opening things up, and then after that, I don't tend to use the red nose a lot with the companies that I work with. So then we look for what's the right form to tell this story. And so I've worked with people who've used movement and dance, storytelling, clowning, so kind of more kind of object theatre. But the exploration really is about what's going to allow you to really say this, to really express this, to really find the right container for this, so that the audience can hear it, and the audience aren't being expected to hold it, because that's not their job, but the audience can meet it with their own experience, and it can have an impact on the audience. It can give the audience space to sit with their grief. Yeah.
I find that's also very closely related to those places of vulnerability that the clown really almost like lives in that environment of vulnerability. And in your TED talk, you touch on that too, like really, like when you talk in the TED talk that you were almost projecting in the audience like all these like thousands of critics, and then you realize that it's actually people feeling like you. So would you say a little more about that moment of actually somewhat welcoming the vulnerability, and like what makes you want to feel that in front of other people, for example?
Yeah, wow. I was a resistor. I was a big vulnerability resistor for a lot of years, and I wasn't interested. That was not an interesting thing for me to be vulnerable in front of audiences. Ridiculous. And so the characters that I created when I was a performer, they got bigger and bigger and bigger and harder and harder and harder. And all my characters had a really hard shell, and they were quite defensive, and they were quite like aggressive. A lot of my characters were quite aggressive and was literally taking up more and more space. I had this character where I wore a really big fat suit so I could take up more space on the stage. Huge characters. And then when I finally gave up performing at 30 and retrained as a drama therapist, I was a nightmare student. I was an absolute nightmare student on the drama therapy course, because I didn't want to be vulnerable. I just didn't want to do it. And all the different ways that I could resist being vulnerable. And one of my lecturers ended up writing a paper about me, because she was just like, I have never met anybody who's as like training to be a therapist and is point blank refusing to step into her vulnerability. So I was a bit of a puzzle for my lecturers, and I think it sort of came gradually through my 3 years of study when I was studying drama therapy, starting to explore, well, what if I don't do what I've always done? What if I don't like come into a room and immediately dominate? Oh God, what if I don't like, you know, meet in this way? And I was doing a lot of meditation, learning about meditation, and I was doing a lot of personal therapy. So I was kind of, you know, I was really discovering a lot about myself and how I present myself in the world. And this realization came about in therapy. I was like, my therapist hit it. She was like, oh, who was the audience to you? Who was the audience when you used to be a performer? And kind of going back into those memories, I realized that I had made the audience my judge. So in making the audience my judge, I was getting bigger and harder to try and fight. I was fighting the judge. And the performance that I was doing it was a fight. It was just one huge fight, and I wanted to win every single time. And you know, you get a lot of this in comedy, in the language of comedy. You get that, you know, comedians who come off stage and are like, "Yeah, I killed it," or you know, or if you don't, they call it dying. They call it dying on your ass. So like, if you like, the language of comedy is all about death. I'm going to win. I'm going to kill them, or I'm going to die. So there's a kind of an antagonism between performers and audience, and so naming that, just realizing, I'm making the audience my judge, and it's making me hard, and then it's making the audience hard, and then we're all just having one big fight. So I stopped performing for a long time, and I did a lot of therapy, and then I came back to performing only 3 years ago. And I've been exploring, well, what happens if I come onto stage with the assumption that the audience is my friend? Just begin with that as a basic assumption. Here's my friends, great. And it's changed everything. It's completely remarkable.
That's the compassion, isn't it? That's when you went to compassion.
Yeah. And compassion for myself first. Compassion for me.
Yeah.
Like, this one who's been fighting for all of these years, she doesn't need to fight anymore. And when I can let down my defenses and allow myself to be vulnerable, then a whole new realm of living has opened up, and performing has opened up. When I'm not having to push to get people to like me, just assuming that they do, then it's very different quality. My performance has got a very different quality.
How would you name it?
I'm softer, and I'm more receptive. I'm more receptive to the audience because I'm actually able to look and see and receive information and work with that. So rather than fight, I'm more like, here's an offer. And I think that's the difference. It's going from that, the push, to that, which is the open-handed offer. And I think, Shannon, what you're talking about there in terms of facilitation, I think it's also affecting my facilitation. I think just going from that to this has been a massive shift.
Yes. I personally think that's the adult journey. I mean, that we come to a place, hopefully, where we can love ourselves even in all of our vulnerability and hard parts that aren't as easy. And in doing that, we offer love to everybody and can accept and can go from this to this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it creates this freedom and permission for others too when we do that.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting because this question is for whoever has done clowning and whoever doesn't and imagines how that could be possible. But the idea the idea right now is to say, hold on. Like all this different, especially in this time of age, I think we all, at least I get this message from all different places of like, you know, how can we stop the war and actually like give, you know, like be there to give and receive, you know, because that's another really hard thing to receive. And so, but I wonder what is the difference, and if there is a difference in the clowning when we talk about this. Because, you know, we hear the same message from the meditation point of view. We hear the same message when we train as a facilitator. We hear the same message when we talk about, I don't know, so many different things. But what makes the clown somewhat a good way to go about that? To like stop the war and open to receive and give.
You know, I think you both talked to it. For me, it's like playing with your vulnerability as part of the clown makes it a whole different thing, you know.
I feel there's something about the space in between the clown and the audience. Like that usually, like for example, in meditation, that space is not there. It's almost as if you're like working on it by yourself, which is very important. But there's this other part that happens in the clowning that it doesn't happen in a different form of theater. You know, when you do theater also, it's not just the stage. It's, I think, the clowning and the willingness of the clown to just be, because as one of my teachers will say, the difference between the clown, so the opposite of the clown is the Greek tragedy in terms of where they live in space. Like the Greek tragedy lives like up here, like it's the longing, the connection with the gods, and almost to become a god yourself in a way. And so there's a lot of like this going up, and almost like if the actor could lift themselves up the ground, they will. And all the energy goes up. But with the clown, it's already down. In a way, it's already dead. It doesn't have to show anything. It doesn't have to fight for anything. It doesn't even have to strive for anything. It's already over here and like with the thing, with everything that is happening. And
there's a lovely saying, Didier Dansoir, who I'd learnt from. He's a meditation teacher and a clown teacher, and he brings the two things together. And he said in his workshop, he said, why is the clown's feet so big? Why does the clown have such big feet? It's so they can touch the earth more. And I think that's really key. I think, and that's been a real key thing for me in exploring my relationship with audiences and taking off all of the masks of who the audience has been for me and who I am playing, because I think that's what they want me to be. So it's been a whole process of taking off all of these masks, of my own masks, their masks, to actually see the truth of actually what is going on here in this moment. What supported me to do that is the meditation practice, is being able to keep my feet on the floor and being able to keep myself grounded in the moment, because the problems start when I'm in some kind of weird, playing out some weird expectation of myself, some kind of assumption about how I think this is going to go. So it's like I'm running a parallel storyline of what's actually going on, and that pulls me away from being here. Or secondly is the fear, when I'm in the fear of, oh God, what's going to happen next, then I'm pulled into the future and I'm not here. So the number one skill for me really has been learning to get present, learning to be here and to see and respond to things as they are. Just this is what's happening. And you were saying earlier, it's when I get caught up in what I think should be happening, then I've lost it. Then I'm not here anymore.
And then the audience cannot connect with you anymore. And that, I think that is so, it's just that having that feedback, that immediate feedback. Like you were saying also in your TED Talk, when you do clown in the street, audience are way more truthful, because if they don't like it, they walk away. in the theater, they kind of have to stay in a way, but the way they tell you is like you feel is flat. They're not connecting.
Yeah, I mean, street theatre was great training, and I would recommend it to everyone. It really, really does teach you how to be charismatic, because if you're not putting out your energy, then the audience aren't going to stick around. They haven't got patience to find out what's going to happen. They want it now. So it really does teach you a lot about how to engage and how to entice and how to keep an audience. So I really learned a lot about rhythm working on the street, changing my rhythm. But then when I came indoors, so I worked on the street first, and then I came indoors after that, and it was so bizarre because the audiences were just so quiet and polite and sitting there and waiting, and I couldn't bear it. I was like, oh, this is rubbish. Like I need something, like give me something. So I ended up lighting the audience and put lights on the audience so that I can see them and they can see me. And you know, in real theatre you have this fourth wall and you're not supposed to look at the audience, which always seems a bit odd to me. In the street theatre, obviously there is no fourth wall, so I brought that into the theatre and found all sorts of different ways to kind of get into the audience and get the audience up onto the stage to kind of make it much more of a shared space. It didn't serve me to have this like performance area and there's the audience and they just watch, because for me clown is not passive. Like when you go to see a clown show, it's an experience. It's a whole body experience, and it's a participatory experience. It's not a spectacle where you just get to sit back and watch it and you're like like clowning really demands that you invest as an audience. You invest and you let yourself feel and you let yourself go along the journey with the clowns, and it's active. It's an active viewing. It's not like other forms of performance where you could probably get away with sitting in the back and texting. You can't do that in the clown show.
Cool. So what questions are there? We're getting to the end of our time. Are there any other questions?
I've been seeing on Facebook that you've been doing clown workouts. I haven't had the bandwidth to even look at them, but I wanted to ask, what are you doing?
What are we doing? We've been doing it for a long time now. It's 6, so we're into our 7th week now. So we started right at the beginning of the UK lockdown, 6 weeks. Daily workouts for clowns in isolation. So my colleague Robin Hambrook and myself, we've been making videos so that anybody can participate in clown workshops, little tiny clown workshops in your own house. And then we start getting in guest teachers as well, and now there's like we've got hundreds of them, these little clown workouts that you can just pick up at any time, and it will give you
lovely.
like
I think it's brilliant, Holly.
It's been so much fun making them. It's been so much fun making them.
Can you do one? Just show ones. No conversation. No, I'm looking at Mary's face. Never mind. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just waiting to see what could be. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No. Let's do this one. This is the very short, snappy one. This is the Note of Infinity, and this one comes from Didier Dansois, who's the guy who told me about the clown's feet. So he says, okay, this is called the Note of Infinity, and this gets you into the clown state. It's a very easy way in. So you start with your hands like this, and you shake them like that. So have a little pause, and we're going to start with a note at the bottom of your range, and you go all the way up, so you go oh till you get to the top, and when you get to the top you imagine that the note goes higher and higher and higher, and then you just keep this note dangling above your head and in your imagination, and this immediately puts you into the clown state. Let's try. Are you ready? Keep that note above your head there. Soften your face a little bit. You can drop the hands, but keep the note. Have a look at each other. You can breathe. and you can come back to the ground. So these are like, that's a little mini one that we do, and just getting you into into this infinite space, and in that infinite space of clown, everything is possible. So once you get yourself into this state of infinity, you could pick up an object, and you could find something to do with the object that you might not ordinarily do with the object, and start to have fun with the things around you. In the clown workout, I get people to make a piece of art, and then they take pictures of the art, and then they send it in, and it's ridiculous, totally ridiculous. We have all these pictures of people who created art in this state. It's completely mad.
Like a Sufi art.
But yeah, that's the idea. And the idea is just like, it's a little mini place to go to have a shakeout, do something embodied, have a chance to change your head state, and then get on with the rest of your day with hopefully a little memory of whatever stupid thing you've done first thing in the morning.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So many different ways to get to that place of wonderment.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how it seems as if, it's something special, but it's something that is there the whole time. It should look weird to us not to be there. That's what should look weird, Like when you see people going like all serious and trying to like do something. And it's like, yeah, like when I in Buddhism at one time, the first time I heard that, one of the teachers said that the main teacher that they studied with, I never got to meet him. He said, "I don't see people, I see Buddhas." And for me, it's like, I don't see people, I see clowns, and it's the same.
Take your pick, right? Yeah.
But we're born clowns. I mean, just look at toddlers. Toddlers are clowns. Like, everything they do is that their clown timing is exquisite. Like, every single toddler. I've never met a toddler who isn't a clown. So we unlearn that. We unlearn that to our lives. We learn to not do that. We all have it in us.
Yes, I think that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
I'm so glad that I had the wherewithal to get on. I'm really glad to see you and hear you.
Oh,
thank you.
So lovely to see you all.
Holly. Thank you so much for being here. And I will, as always, I will put this in my YouTube channel if somebody wants to see it later, for posterity. And so anyways, thank you. And just we usually end with one thing, like just taking a moment, an account of like how we entered the conversation and how we're leaving. And if we were to encapsulate that state in a word, what would that be?
Note of infinity.
Note of infinity. Yay. Thank you. I feel alive.
It's a wonder.
I feel really energized and grateful for your listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you, all of you, for this.
I have to go. Love.
Bye-bye. See you later. Thank you, Holly.
Pleasure.
Bye, sweetie.